So the goal of today's session is really to share how world-class EPM processes and technologies can provide organizations a competitive advantage and really enable finance to be a better business partner. So in terms of the agenda, we'll look to provide a little bit of an overview on Sunovion for you as well as Peloton. Then we'll provide some background on the situation that really led Sunovion to significantly improve their EPM processes and tools. We'll then give you an overview of the solution and how we moved through the initiative, and then wrap up with some key successes and give you a flavor of next steps within the program. We'll also, at the end, spend some time covering any questions that folks have, and again, feel free to use the question bar on the right-hand side. So as an introduction to your presenters, first, Patty Ciervo. Patty is a vice president at Sunovion and has been with the company for over 8 years. During her time, the company has really experienced significant changes and growth. Just a couple to highlight. One is they went from 1 commercial product to 8 commercial products. They also went from being a public company to a wholly owned subsidiary of DSP. And as you will see, Patty was a major force behind the transformation within Sunovion's finance function. Leslie Matson is a senior manager at Peloton and a member of the life sciences vertical team. She's led many large-scale EPM implementations and has been the account manager at Sunovion since the start of the initiative. So Patty, as our host of today's session, I'll hand over the floor to you to provide us an overview of Sunovion.
Thank you. So as was mentioned, I have been with Sunovion, formerly known as Sepracor, for approximately 8 years. And Sunovion is a pharmaceutical company that primarily focuses on the therapeutic areas of central nervous system, CNS, and respiratory ailments. And as you can see by the icons across the page, we have, when I first arrived, we had 1 commercialized product, Zofinax, which served as our asthma product. And we have, through the years, added to that portfolio quite nicely. Most recently have received approval for an indication related to our Latuda product for bipolar disorder. In addition, there are a continued stream of pipeline products that we have across those therapeutic areas as well as we continue to build for the future.
Great. So, hi, this is Leslie Matson. Thank you, Paul, for the introduction. And I'm joining the call today from Peloton as well. We are based on the premise that companies who consistently leverage analytics will outperform those who don't. So we dedicate our resources to assist our clients with their analytics, business intelligence, and enterprise performance management initiatives. And we really have a unique combination of both the business process expertise as well as the hands-on technical implementation experience.
Great. Thanks for the overview. So Leslie, can you help set the stage on what led to the change initiative that Sunovion took on?
Absolutely. So back in early 2011, Sunovion and Peloton came together in a partnership to embark upon a Hyperion planning upgrade. So when we arrived on site at Sunovion, we assessed the current state landscape of the performance management domain. Overall, the core foundation was very strong. There had been limited changes to the EPM landscape since the original implementation a number of years prior, and there were some known opportunities to improve system performance to better leverage the existing platform to support any new planning and reporting requirements. So Sunovion was actively using 1 Hyperion planning application. It was System 9. There was financial planning and workforce planning enabled. There were 3 EIS cubes that had been created for web analysis dashboards, although they were used with little frequency. And on top of that, there was a fully integrated and robust data warehouse that had been built and was actively and routinely used for loading actual data from the source systems. So in terms of areas for improvement and areas that we really felt we could help improve their landscape with a simple upgrade was to help with some new metadata build processes. Some of those were a little bit dated, and there was some difficulty just keeping the production and development and testing instances in sync. All right. So then after we arrived at Sunovion, we started to work more closely with Patty and Patty's group, and we started to hear some additional overall business challenges from Patty. So I'm going to hand it off to Patty.
Thanks, Leslie. So there are a number of challenges that we faced, some not unique to Sunovion, some unique to a finance or an FP&A organization as it progresses through its evolution. And so I wanted to take just a moment to speak about that and how that related to the business challenges. So really, whatever we faced as an organization, we needed to make sure that we were evolving from what I call back office to boardroom presence. And so a lot of finance organizations, I'm sure many can feel some of this in their own experiences, become the data manipulators or the folks that take on ad hoc analyses on a regular basis and spend a lot of time doing the data gathering and probably not as much time as desired doing the analytics around that data gathering. So really, in order for us to become more aligned with our strategic initiatives, in order for us to be able to inform the organization about opportunities and risks against our financial landscape, we really needed to become more efficient and work more productively in the way that we gather the data so that we can move space forward for us to sit squarely in the analytical area. So that was something kind of underlying as we went through the evolution. And then specifically to Sunovion, some of the business challenges we were facing at the same time over this 8-year period is going from a single product to a multiple product portfolio obviously created different types of analyses and deeper breadth and depth of analytics that were needed to make sure that we were planning and managing our information that we delivered to senior leadership on a best-in-class basis. The parent company requirement. So Seprecor at the time had been a public company through 2009. So at that time, we were acquired by Sunovion Pharmaceuticals, a Japanese organization. And so there were other requirements that were placed upon us as a subsidiary that we needed to fold into our deliverables. There was also a discipline that our parent company imposed upon us that was a little different than what some U.S.-based companies experience on a regular basis, which is more of the much more longer-term view of our business landscape. And so those of us that have been or are public can appreciate the quarter-to-quarter earnings call, board of director deadlines that often fuel those short-term decisions, and again, not have enough time to really think about the long-term landscape. And so our parent company, DSP, has imposed a discipline upon us that I believe has created a more robust and informative way of managing those opportunities and risks to our strategic horizon. And so those requirements then came with needing to deliver on those on top of all the other requirements that a finance organization has. And then not specific to Sunovion, but regulatory environment also dictates a lot of our work processes and additional regulations and therefore impose greater demands on the FP&A group as well. So again, just in summary, both internally and externally, we needed to react to the changing landscape and needed to evolve accordingly. So specific to FP&A and what we were going to do about this initiative, we can talk about this in two general areas. One is the efficiency and effectiveness of how we were gathering our data. So we needed to move away from our Excel models, the manual effort, the heavy lift that was associated with every activity that we needed to do. So again, we were focused on making sure we were providing a long-term solution for the future that would become more automated. So in terms of that automation, coming to the second point, the technology that we had invested in quite a number of years previous to this, this journey that we started was it had outlived its utility. Let's put it that way. So we had a really nice foundation that we had built 7+ years ago, but we needed to step back and think about refreshing this platform. So we did have some performance issues. We did have increased demands on our financial systems support team, and some modeling within the application that we just needed to rethink. And in summary, the platform did not keep up with the pace of the company growth. So I've spoken previously about the great growth that had happened across the 8 years. And we were focusing all of our time where we should be, on the revenue drivers for the organization. And so with that, we can all share the feeling sometimes that support functions may take a back seat during those growth periods. So the unfortunate consequence of that is that the regular care and feeding that we'd like to give our tools and technology usually doesn't happen. So it was clear that we were at a pivotal point. So we were considering what we should do on that path forward, and had to answer a really important question. We knew we were at a place where we absolutely had to upgrade our technological platform in order to meet even the most fundamental needs that were coming forth in the business. But at this point, we needed to take a step back and see if it was the right time for the organization to absorb a transformative initiative where we would put some significant investment behind expanding the capabilities of our technology.
Great. So Patty came to our team and said, she was thinking about doing a little bit of a greater initiative here and looking to transform the technology foundation that was in place from just that simple upgrade to a little bit of a bigger initiative. So we took a step back as Peloton and we said, well, let's think about if this is really going to be successful. So we know that the key enablers to a successful transformation are, is there a desire and a case for change? Is there strategic FP&A vision and leadership? Is there the right information architecture and enabling technology foundation available? Do they have an independent perspective available to them? And is there a mobilization framework to work against to really build out that roadmap? So I'll go through a few of these here. So for the desire and case for change, so there's certainly, we found that there was a desire for change. The demands on FP&A had grown significantly. The business improvement opportunities were, we could see them significantly there in terms of creating more automation, reducing the level of effort for just their typical annual planning periods, rationalizing the level of planning detail. So, do they really need all of this supporting detail in their planning applications? Is it getting them any closer to a better forecast? Probably not, definitely not, it turned out, and they really didn't need to be doing a lot with that. And then just looking at general system optimization, looking at new features and capabilities that were available in later releases of Hyperion. We certainly knew that they were going to see a lot of great new functionality in the newer versions of the tool. So next, as we look for the next key enabler for a successful transformation, we look for a strategic FP&A vision and leadership. So efficient, effective projects are much more successful with a strong leader who has a long-term vision, and that leadership was here. We could see it as soon as we walked in the door between Patty and Patty's team. They knew what they wanted. They could look long-term. They could, be that quarterback in the back of the field and really see what was happening around them. And they could, they had a great vision that we knew we were going to be using and working with pretty closely. So that was, we were able to check that box, and that key enabler was certainly available. Next, we have the information architecture and enabling technology foundation. So there had been that previous strategic investment in the architecture. The foundation was in place to accommodate the changing business dynamics. In this case, there was a financial data warehouse, and it provided that single repository for data needed for planning and analysis purposes. So, I'd say this is probably the hardest sell for most organizations because typically the business users don't get a lot out of something like a data warehouse. They don't see the immediate effects, just like the foundation of any house. You don't see it, but you need it there. You need it to be strong in order to continue building. So I would say with anybody who's looking to create any sort of roadmap, if this enabling technology foundation is not in place, it absolutely has to be there before you can start to build upon a bigger roadmap.
So now that we made the decision that we would go towards a transformative initiative, we needed to find a business partner to do that with. We needed somebody that had a neutral perspective, that could come listen to what it was that the vision held and guide us accordingly to prioritize and properly map out what we needed to do. To me, strong project management was needed because, of course, we all have our day jobs, and it would be impossible to be able to truly do the project justice if we didn't have an independent project manager helping us move that project along. And, of course, being aligned on expectations. So a partner that could hear and translate what your desires were into a roadmap and eventual reality. Understanding the industry, having that knowledge and expertise was extremely important. But of course, for us as well, prior experience working with the organization and having built the initial infrastructure was a pivotal decision in coming together with Peloton.
Great, thank you. So then the last key enabler here is just looking at a mobilization framework. So we have a proven approach here for evaluating where an organization is today and then helping to determine what that roadmap can look like in the future. So bringing to bear that standard approach to quickly explore and understand the overarching requirements, identify improvement opportunities, envision that future state, and then put some definition around the individual initiatives is really key to a prioritized multi-phase roadmap. So with that, the picture became a bit clearer, and it was really determined. We came back to Patty and worked together to kick off a little bit of a bigger, more transformative approach to not just doing a simple upgrade, but also looking at a larger roadmap to begin to work against. So there was certainly a desire for change. The vision and leadership was there. The architecture was in place. We were able to bring to bear an independent perspective and a framework as well to mobilize against. So, putting that out for Patty, we felt like this was a really great opportunity in Sunovion's evolution to open up and kind of create that bigger roadmap.
And from Sunovion's perspective, it was important for us to make sure, as we did, that we had support from executive leadership, that we had brought all of the shareholders together in understanding the preliminary roadmap, so our financial systems group, those within FP&A. We had to gain the momentum and excitement around the change that would be happening in short order.
Great. So with the enablers to transformation in place and the decision made to move forward, Leslie, can you share with us how it got started?
Of course. So with any good project, you're going to start with a clear set of goals and objectives. They should be defined, discussed, and communicated with the team on a at least somewhat regular basis. And this slide here that we're showing is just an example of the goal and objectives that we were working against in the beginning back in 2011. This was reviewed pretty regularly. We put this in front of the CFO. We put it in front of many different groups in the organization to make sure we had buy-in. And we also brought it up regularly just to make sure that we were still tracking against our goal. With that being said, we moved into the requirements gathering and the mobilization workshops. So we ended up having approximately 7 different areas of the organization who we met with for a good number of sessions. I think we had about 3 sessions with each of them. And we were able to pull out of that representative key learnings throughout the process. So from a system performance perspective with the IT and financial systems group, to the business views, that was specific to the R&D group and some of the new reporting requirements they had. The revenue planning and reporting analysis group, we sat with them to understand their needs and desires in an application or an enabling technology. Costing was another key group. Product P&L, again, we've heard Sunovion has gone from 1 product to 8 products. They really needed that product level P&L available to them. The full product lifecycle analysis with historical data was also key. And then we talked through capital planning and spending. So out of all of these sessions and these meetings with all these different individual groups, we were able to come together and bring to bear the starting point for our roadmap. And this also gave us the key learnings we needed so that we could create that priority list. So as part of the mobilization framework that we used, we mapped Sunovion on a conceptual scale, showing how we could help Sunovion move into that next stage of the maturity continuum. So the initial upgrade would solidify and improve the good foundation that was already in place there in stage 1. So we felt like that stage 1, they had met all of those needs and they had that good foundation. The upgrade would solidify that. The initiatives on the roadmap would then move Sunovion along the continuum through stage 2 and stage 3. So we were really looking to move them to expand that core and then to begin leveraging and optimizing as much as possible. Here we have an early version of the roadmap. So this was a very early showing, and this was something that we used for talking points as we talked through the expectations of the organization and where they thought they wanted to spend their time. So after analyzing and synthesizing the output from our discovery workshops, this is what came together. An intentional game plan to move forward from the current state to the desired end state over time. This initial roadmap certainly evolved over time as priorities and resources changed, and also we allowed it to be flexible as business dynamics changed over time. So another great piece of having this roadmap and being able to speak to this roadmap is if someone from a group within the organization, so I'm just going to give an example here. If somebody from, say, the product costing group came to us and said, wow, it would be really great if I could do X in our financial planning application that's in place today. Do you think you could do that? We could pull out this roadmap and say, we understand you have needs. We understand you're stuck in a world of spreadsheets. You have, you've gone from 1 product to 8 products, and doing that all in Excel is a difficult thing for you right now. You're on our roadmap, and you will be we'll be talking with you and gathering those detailed requirements, and you'll have your own application, and we're planning for that. So this just gave us the tool to be able to have those conversations. In addition to that, you can see on the bottom, this was really an enterprise-wide roadmap. So we wanted to keep in mind the idea of bringing in OBI, so beginning to work on dashboards. We also knew that there were some organizational initiatives to do an e-business suite upgrade. So keeping that in mind, knowing that resources would be stretched across the organization for these different initiatives, we wanted to keep those on the roadmap. So during this solution optimization, we were able to increase flexibility, expand the foundational building blocks where necessary to support the known projects that would be coming down the line. In addition to that, we also began collaborating with the wider organization to build some of those key relationships, gain alignment and consensus within the organization. So during that roadmap and during the initial solution optimization, we were really able to build the right relationships to help us move forward as we work down the items on the roadmap.
Great. All right. Well, let's talk through some of the keys to your success. It's obviously a large program that you took on, so I think everybody's interested to hear about some of these keys to success.
Sure. Happy to share. I like the title of the slide, Exploring the Art of the Possible, because it clearly summarized where our mindset needed to be as we started to map out this journey. I spoke earlier also about FP&A, or the finance function, going through an evolution of back office to boardroom. And we've heard a lot of that. I'm sure many of you as well as heard and talk a lot about business partnering, having a seat at the table, making sure we have strategic influence and we understand the business and are able to translate our financial landscape to all in the organization. So we always needed to align to that overarching mantra as we embarked on this journey. And so in order to do that, in order to really be transformational, we needed to step back and take an unconstrained blue sky approach to how we were going to achieve that transformative initiative. We knew we had the fundamental building block and that technology was going to be a very huge lever and pivotal driver of that journey. So there's a few things that we did through this planning process. Because we're finance folks and accountants at heart, we love detail. And usually we can get ourselves caught up, I think many can agree, in the granularity, the detail, the making sure we have all aspects aligned. But really this was intended to have us view the world in a different way, maybe take it up a level, focus on the business drivers and materiality. What were really the high-level financial drivers or levers that would inform us and inform senior leadership and quickly and efficiently. As well, we really wanted an opportunity to understand and acknowledge that ad hoc requests were still going to be part of our lives and are needed on a regular basis, but how could we leverage the technology so that we could have more of a self-service capability for our business, our end users, and all of those that we interact with. Again, talking about prior initiatives and the technology that we had put in place already, we were in a great position to leverage the existing architecture, the data warehouse that we had been caring and feeding for, and the platform that we currently had. But most importantly, it was vital for us to think of this as a long-term project with phased implementations, and that we would need to reassess along the way as each phase was coming to completion and be very nimble and able to pull projects forward or maybe out of the list of prioritization as we continue to move with the organization. So it was important for us not to be so prescriptive, but to have kind of the goalposts or the map and the architecture that we could then kind of plug and play as we were experiencing the different implementations. And that's a really nice lead-in to what we learned through this process. So we talked about what was important to us, what we needed to do from a strategic perspective, what we were trying to do from a day-to-day perspective, which is be more efficient in our data accumulation, and then looking at the roadmap and doing things in a phased approach. But along the way, we had experiences that helped define adjustments to this plan and perhaps what we would do in the future. So it was extremely important for us to realize that not everyone will be on board with this transformative initiative right away. Like I mentioned, we had executive leadership team endorsement, but folks that we were touching and feeling every day to bring on board with the momentum of our project may not have been able to see what was in it for them right away. And so we needed to be able to be flexible, negotiate, and bring people on the journey at their own pace. So we may have thought that there was a group outside of finance that would be open to having maybe being able to leverage a piece of this technology in the earlier part of the roadmap, and came to find out that actually what we needed to do was to show them maybe a successful piece of the roadmap and how that had impact to the organization before they were willing to come on board. And that was okay. There were early adopters, and then there were those that needed to come at their own pace. I think what that means is that it's really important to have quick wins. So if we could deliver some of the early stages of the roadmap, be able to show how the technology helped enable business decisions, that then helped for the momentum to continue on the transformative initiative. And change management was also a very important place to press in. It's very difficult, all of us, it's for every one of us to break past habits and things that were important to us, so doing things the way we always had. So internal dynamics and navigating delicately through politics requires patience and, again, the ability to negotiate and change the path when necessary. So this by no means is an easy journey to go through, and we have had our moments where we had to redirect and regroup. But quite frankly, staying calm and understanding that you can take a step back and have those contingency plans for those unexpected events and keep moving forward. In the end, if you stay true to what you're thinking, what your major goal is, you will always be able to find a path forward. It just may be a little bit a different route than you originally intended. So, you know, the important piece out of all of this is that even when you have defined your initial roadmap, and even more so when you've accomplished maybe a large portion of that roadmap, you will then naturally, as we have now, want to define the next roadmap and what we can do to continue to evolve on that journey and the evolution that we've been talking about.
Okay, well, those are definitely great lessons learned, and appreciate the insights, Patty. Leslie, why don't you give us a sense, just to wrap us up here, where we've been, maybe give people a flavor of some of the detailed projects, and then where we're going and some of the next steps.
Absolutely. So here's a great look, I think, of our roadmap over time. So starting in 2011 with that initial upgrade, we were able to complete that as well as the planning and reporting mobilization. On top of that, we were able to perform a great number of new projects with Sunovion, and all of them have really been, I would consider them quite successful. So, you know, something as simple as an F-based optimization, helping to develop some new alternate hierarchies for more robust reporting. So we were able to add some very quick value to the organization. Then taking Hyperion planning and doing a proof of concept for product P&L to validate that we could build in the allocations that we require to get down to that product level P&L. So I think that was also another probably a good lesson learned, was that we did that initial proof of concept and then proved out that the technology would do everything we needed it to do, and then we were able to move forward with the full implementation of that P&L. Aside from that, you know, working certainly with the revenue reporting and analysis group, working with product costing, we created some multi-currency applications or added multi-currency calculations to the applications. Even something like a fiscal calendar change. You know, when DSP came in at a point in time and said, you know, we really want everyone here at Sunovion to change their fiscal calendar, it has a big impact on the financial systems, and there was some rework to do. So that's a great example, too, of where you're able to just kind of change course as things arise, and we were able to fit that in and make the changes to the calendar as needed. So for any technologists who are out there, we gave a quick view here of just an overarching reference information architecture diagram showing how the blueprint has expanded. So initially we started out with some very simple source systems. We were really pulling data from the GL and that was it. Since then, we've added all these additional modules from the business suite to continue to load new source data. We have that great robust data warehouse that is used to source all of our data and metadata into the applications. We've now added on, we have 5 new planning applications that fit into the analytical layer. And as we move on and start working on OBI initiatives, we've expanded that layer as well to include Oracle Business Intelligence for additional dashboarding initiatives. So this footprint, this blueprint has grown as we've needed it to grow, and it can continue to grow from here as necessary.
So what's really exciting about this discussion we have today is that I can sit back and say that we've had a very successful journey, and we have the basics down. So we've become an efficient FP&A organization in data manipulation, and we talk about not being able to live without S-base. That's literal. So in order for us to be able to engage with our accounting colleagues on the financial statement month-end close, for example, and be able to come to those CFO financial statement meetings with some rich analytics, and we close within 3 days of a month, we now can do that nimbly, efficiently, and without much pain to the FP&A organization. And what's exciting is once you get the basics down, then you start to feel that like the sky's the limit, and what should we do next? So where we're focusing on now is looking at executive dashboarding. We have just completed a pilot for that is in the hands of the executive leadership team right now to play with for a few months and talk about how we could perhaps roll this out to the organization. So one of the important things we like to do in FP&A is be the shepherd for the organization in understanding and cascading the communication of our financial landscape. But again, it's really deliberate in how we need to roll that out. So the executive dashboard started all the way literally from the executives. What we want to do is gain momentum and feedback and then move on to the next stage of, again, cascading that information throughout the organization in various different views of dashboarding. So people can feel connected to the information that, again, drives our top and bottom line financial performance. Now that's how we want to take care of all in the organization, but also there are some specific needs in other divisions that we've also been able to explore and serve appropriately. So our R&D division specifically, we have a business decision or business question that we'd like to answer, which is how does the demand for our R&D services across all of our clinical programs and trials, et cetera, align with the supply that we have? And how can we leverage the current system to be able to answer that question? And so we've also embarked on a pilot for that resource planning module that is now moved from pilot into production mode and has served that part of the organization well. We're also, as we talked about, moving to long-range planning, and not just a rolling forecast, but true 5+ year planning. We're looking to find ways to house that information in the technology platform and be able to do point modifications when we are aware of those big risks or opportunities that come forth in the organization that change our financial landscape. So how can we be nimble, apply those point modification metrics, and inform executive leadership quickly about the impact? Again, finally, we continue to utilize some of the discovery sessions that we had very, very early on in this journey a few years ago, and come back to those sessions to see some of the other areas outside of finance that we could press in on and help to deliver some of their projects or their insight that they're held accountable to. So again, it's important to see kind of the forest through the trees here. So we built the basics, mastered that, and now can set some space aside for us to truly explore the analytical part of our functions objectives.
Okay, well that brings us to the end of the actual presentation. I think first just want to say to Patty and Leslie, thank you very much for the time you guys spent telling us about the Sunovion story. It's an exciting story of significant change on a technical, process perspective, even an organizational perspective. I definitely think I speak for everybody in saying thank you, for your time. I'd like to open up for questions now. As I mentioned at the start, you can submit a question on the control panel on the right side of your screen. So to give folks a chance to type in a question or two, I'll get us started. So let's start a little bit on change management. Patty, you hit a little bit on kind of managing the organizational dynamics of the change management, but can you maybe expand a little bit more on the challenge of really getting end users to adopt the solutions, which is always a challenge when you have a multi-phased roadmap and multiple solutions coming out.
Definitely. So I keep reiterating the message here, which I think is so important, about understanding that there's a lot that you want to accomplish when you start on this transformative initiative, but you need to choose, first and foremost, the project or the solution that's going to make the biggest outward impact to the organization. So we were looking, when we were doing that and exploring our options, we understood that and selected the modules to do that with. And I'll give you a specific example. So we were an organization that had the luxury of pretty high margins because a lot of our compounds that we brought to market were organically created. But as we, along with the rest of our competitors in the pharmaceutical industry, evolve in the business landscape, that no longer is the bread and butter of pharma. It most predominantly happens when there's in-licensing activities, for example, that allow compounds to come into the family. And when that happens, our margins depress somewhat because of royalty and other payments that need to go back to the organization that we're doing business with. And so as our royalties start as our margins start to go down, suddenly there's a focus on cost of goods where there never had been before. And there's a saying that one of our CFOs had said in the past, that when you're rich, you're sloppy. And so when we had high margins, nobody cared about the cost of goods. And as we saw the landscape going forward and the need to focus on this, that was one of the very first areas we decided to explore, which is to build out a module that allowed us to have deep, rich analytics and an understanding of our cost of goods structure. We did that and saw immediate feedback. We were able to not hold up investment, so to speak, in an area of the P&L that we could utilize in other areas because we were being much more detailed about how we were building up our product cost assumptions. And so upon seeing that impact and seeing how that played out in the long-term horizon, we started the momentum. And senior leadership as well as others began to understand and want to be part of that successful train as it moved along. So pick something that you know will be very impactful, and then you'll be able to move along more quickly and successfully.
Great. Thanks, Patty. We actually have a question here a little bit around mobilizations, and I'll preface it because I think I know where the question is going. Leslie, you mentioned that one of the key enablers to the transformation was having kind of a core infrastructure in place. And you mentioned that that was a key thing to starting the mobilization. So the question is, we don't have a core set of infrastructure, but we are considering improving our EPM capabilities and environment. Is a mobilization the right place to start without those pieces in place?
Absolutely. So starting out with that mobilization is going to help you define what that architecture needs to look like. So having those conversations, opening up the lines of communication with all areas of your business through a mobilization effort will help you define what that architecture needs to look like. At that point, I would certainly recommend having you stop and work on that foundation, build out that foundation, make it a strong one, so that you can then start working on the pieces that all of your business users are really going to start to tangibly touch and feel and get significant business use out of.
Great. Excellent. Okay. One more question, Patty. Looking back at the program, you've obviously covered a lot of ground, a lot of solutions. What is the one thing you would have done differently as you look back on what you learned? I know we had the kind of key learnings, but if you were to distill it down to the one, maybe two things that you would want to highlight for the group, what would that be?
So the one learning that I have, and we're actually finding a solution to what I think was a little bump, right? And this was me wanting to go at a pace that perhaps was a little too fast for what we could absorb internally in FP&A. So externally, this isn't something that again, external to other groups within the organization. They can't see this. But so what they're seeing are successful rollouts, some pilots that then led to larger projects. But internally, the pressure that was put on FP&A and the financial systems support group to keep up with all of these different modules is pretty intense. And so I would encourage everyone who is embarking upon a journey to one of the pieces of your roadmap would be a good amount of time in the middle of it to do a step back and refine approach. And what I mean specifically by that is, you know, it would have been important for us to take a breath and understand all of the punch list items that we had been accumulating along the way, little things that over time add up, and take some time to just kind of refresh, take care of those housekeeping items, and then move forward. So it's the excitement sometimes gets the better of us, and we keep charging forward. So right now, I've put together an initiative with Peloton to do that, and it would have probably been a lot easier for us had we taken care of it a little earlier on.
Great. Thanks for the insight on that. So we actually have one more question from the group here, and it has to do with level of detail. You had mentioned back a few slides ago that as a smaller company with one product, you planned and kind of analyzed at a very detailed level, and one of the keys to success was to kind of elevate that, and almost a necessity based on the change of the business. Can you talk to that a little bit more in terms of how you accomplish that and manage that? Because that's a hard habit to break.
Yes, it is. And there were two things that had gone on in our early days. One was that we had rolled out some of the responsibility for actually, and this is a matter of preference, but I'm just speaking from experience and what we at Sunovion found, that you could have your users interacting with the system directly, or you can have your users kind of utilizing templates that your analysts or finance folks put together to easily then upload into the system. And some of the things we found over time was that it was much easier for us to translate our data into the system if we first took a look at all of the detailed inputs, distill it down, and then have the analysts responsible for putting that information into the system. So back in the day, Leslie mentioned we used supporting detail, and there was a lot of information that we tried to house right inside of the technology. You know what we found at the end of the day? Because at the time there was always a push to take everything out of what may have been Excel and get that into the system. A couple things happened. First, performance, and so that we suffered there. And the other thing is, it's okay to have all of that detail in Excel. you really don't need to put it into your system. So, you know, it will always be there for reference, but really it is a huge mindset, and it didn't happen easily, and it didn't happen overnight. We almost piloted it in one area of FP&A to do it on the commercial side of the business. And once we saw success there, the R&D analysts then came aboard and kind of joined. So it really is adoption at every level. But something like that, you just don't take a switch and turn it on and off. You do have to evolve towards you know, less information, higher level data, but always keep the root and the source information close by. We really didn't lose anything by taking it out of the system and putting it in a different repository.
Great. Thanks, Patty. Well, Patty, Leslie, thank you again for your time. I think this was great. Appreciate, again, all the insights. And thank you to everybody on the phone for your participation. I hope you found the session helpful and beneficial. Please don't hesitate to reach out to myself if you have any questions or suggestions. Thank you very much, and thank you again, Patty and Leslie.